new. Lord, I'm ready for change. I can't keep living like this. I don't wanna be the same. Lord, I'm ready for change. From the inside out, I don't wanna be the same.
Thank you for tuning in to Ready for Change. I'm your host, Simmone L. Bowe. I'm really excited about our show tonight. We're going to be talking about changing the leadership mindset and model, crisis or opportunity. I'm telling you, this is going to be a hot topic. Again, my name is Simmone L. Bowe. I am a speaker and author, a mentor of visionaries who are transitioning. And I am a transformation and transition strategist. And in a nutshell, I help people, in particular young people, women, visionaries, business leaders, professionals, to transition through the turning points of their lives, transitioning from a place of stuck to where I want to be. You know, they may have reached a measure of success, they have a vision, they want to move forward, but somehow they're stuck either in a particular mindset, particular process, particular way of doing things. And I help you to strategize your way out of that transitionary period. And Ready for Change is a show that is designed for people who want more, who want to move from where they are to where they want to be. I'm very happy that Ready for Change is a part of the May We Help You broadcast network. And we are a part of a great network of people, really awesome hosts, a variety of diverse shows that have great content and actually great entertainment as well. So today's show, changing the leadership mindset and model, crisis or opportunity. You know, a lot of times we get stuck in complaining about the way things are, complaining about what needs to be fixed, but we don't seem to get to the fixing. And so we want to talk about this whole leadership crisis that people are talking about, this deficit that we see in many of our organizations, whether secular, whether civic, whether church. And can we look at it as an opportunity for change? Can we look at it as a place where we can refine how we do things and change with the times and change with the needs of today's constituents, today's workers, today's congregations, wherever your leadership may take you. Everything that is alive changes and evolves. That's a part of who we are as human beings. If you don't change, you die. I just read that somewhere. You know, you have got to change. Some changes happen and they're not planned, they're not expected, but they are catalysts. They are those turning points that help us to move to where we need to be. And it is part of, I believe, a divine plan that gets us to that place of destiny. So right after this commercial break, I will introduce our expert guest for this evening to talk about our show, Changing the Leadership Mindset and Model, Crisis or Opportunity. Be right back.
Most people are held captive by being an employee or self-employed. Heroes Academy helps break these chains that bind them. Our financial school has 2 courses of study. First, one for people who want to transition to become business owners, and the second for students who want to learn to become an investor. For more information, please go to heroacad.com.
Are you frustrated, disappointed, discouraged with your life? Are you angry with God? What's holding you back from fulfilling your purpose? Are you struggling as a leader in ministry? Do you believe you have an end-time calling? If you answered yes to any of these questions, tune in to The Waymakers on MWHY Radio Network every other Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are here to support you. Join us to get the answers that will prepare the way of the Lord in your life.
Cap City, get ready. EJ from the Top presents a Valentine evening of smooth jazz and classic soul featuring Wade Elliott, former lead singer of Blue Magic.
What's come over me?
Wade Elliott of Blue Magic. Also performing, it's the jazz band Smooth Concepts, along with comedians Black Magic and Tin Man. That's Valentine's Day, February 14th at the Top, located at 10 Walnut Alley in Shockoe Bottom. It's Wade Elliott, former lead singer of the legendary Blue Magic, performing all of their hits. It's the best jazz in Richmond from the Smooth Concepts Band and Show, along with comedians Black Magic and Tin Man, with your host, the Butterfly Queen. That's Valentine's Day, Saturday, February 14th, showtime, 5 p.m. Tickets are just $25 in advance, $35 at the door. For more information, call 647-2592. That's 647-2592. Valentine's Day. Spend the night with Wade Elliott of Blue Magic, live at the Top, 10 Walnut Alley in Shockoe Bottom. Don't miss it.
It is my esteemed pleasure to welcome to tonight's show our expert guest in the person of Dr. Sandra G. Smith. And she is no stranger to the concept of leadership or the practice of leadership. Dr. Smith is a pastor. She is a John Maxwell certified coach, speaker, and trainer. She is an intuitive coach. She is a trained nurse. She's a healthcare nursing administrator. She has traveled the world through her work with UN AIDS, with the World Health Organization. She's been to Switzerland. She's been to Thailand. She has represented the country actually here in the Bahamas. She's a recipient of several awards and internships. She is a health liaison officer presently, and her hobbies include reading and traveling. She's a proud mother and grandmother, and so we are so fortunate to have her spend some time with us tonight. Dr. Sandra G. Smith. Welcome to the show, Dr. Smith. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. I'm really very intrigued to hear about your views on this topic, changing the leadership mindset and model. Are we in a crisis, or is this an opportunity for change? So tell us first of all about yourself and your work.
Well, I am Sandra Smith. You know, a lot of people like to talk about their titles, but I'm just plain old Sandra. And being Sandra, you can hang anywhere, you can do whatever it is you want to do, but at the same time, help to empower a lot of people along the journey. I'm a mother of 3 daughters, 2 grandchildren. I used to be a registered nurse, but you know, they say once a nurse, always a nurse.
That's right.
And I switched from clinical nursing around about 1999 and went into healthcare administration. I have a bachelor's degree in nursing, a master's in library and information science, and I have a doctorate with a double major in organizational leadership and human services administration. I'm also a pastor. I've been pastoring for 12 years.
Wow, that is a lot.
It is.
Yes. And so even in all of that, there's so many different directions we'll go in, but we will stick to our topic tonight of leadership and in particular organizational leadership as well, which is part of your strength and expertise. So let's talk first of all about the concept of leadership. What in your mind is leadership?
Well, there are several fundamental concepts of leadership. It's a process, it involves influence, it occurs in groups, and it involves common goals. In essence, you must have somebody who has been identified or designated as a leader, and then there must be followers, at least 2 or more persons. And this group of people work towards achieving a common goal.
Good. So, do you think that good or effective leadership is only a dream?
Certainly not. It's not a dream. If persons who are recognized, designated, or identified as leaders, if they're willing to learn the skills necessary to make them good leaders, then good leadership is more than a possibility. It's actually a dream come true.
You're right, because I can tell you in my work, from the human resources side of things, that is usually people's complaint is the leadership. And if we're conducting a training session or a workshop, they say, my leader should have been here. My leader should have been hearing this information. So what do you think is good leadership? What are the qualities of an effective leader?
The qualities of an effective leader, I would say, first of all, should be a people's person. Be able to get along with people. Be able to listen, very important, and to be inclusive, include people. One of the things I've been finding, and I've thought about for years, is that leaders do not include their subordinates, and that's not a very good word to use, subordinates, but the people who work along with them, they do not include them in the decision-making process. And so you find people become disgruntled, they don't feel as if they're part of the team, and so they're not willing to put that extra, to go that extra mile to help the organization.
Right. So we're living right now, I guess you can say, in an imperfect world, because we're still hearing so many horror stories of negative leadership models in every arena. There's no arena where there is not a leadership complaint, whether that is the workplace, whether that is the church, whether that is in civic community or even government. Everywhere we're hearing this cry for more effective leadership. What do you think is the cause of the disconnect between what we know good leadership is, all of those things that you just described, being able to listen, being able to plan, to incorporate ideas, to be a good, effective communicator, all of these things that leaders should have, and what we're seeing today? What do you think is the cause of that gap?
Simmone, times have changed. I think the disconnect occurs when leaders refuse to change along with the times. You find that they continue to do it the old way, and you can always identify these people. They have a mantra. That's not the way we do it.
Yes.
We've always done it this way. And so you have bright young minds coming out of school. We're in the information era, and people have access to the internet. Information is changing on a daily basis. And so people are coming out of school, and they're excited to bring these new changes, these new strategies to the workplace or to the organization. And then you have this old fuddy-duddy of a leader.
Yes.
Who puts his foot down and said, look here, that's not the way we do it. And so people don't want to work with them anymore. They lose interest, and of course they can't reach their full potential on the job.
Right. And then studies have proven that people don't leave jobs, that people leave people.
People, exactly.
And usually they're leaving their leader. They're leaving their manager. There's someone that, as you said, they're making the environment frustrating for them, that people want to give their best. I know that the talk in the market is that people don't want to work. People just want to get a paycheck. But a large number of people, I believe, want to make a meaningful impact in their organization. And a lot of times it's the leader that seems to hinder that.
They do. I've held several workshops, attended several workshops, and I look around and I'm asking, where are the leaders? They can benefit from this information that they can take back to their organizations. And the thing nowadays is increased productivity, job satisfaction, employee satisfaction. And if you don't have those things in place, then you might as well close shop.
And the thing is, the expectation is for employees and team members to do more with less. So we're expecting more from the employee. We're expecting the employee to be the top talent, as we say, to be on top of their game, to be skillful and part of and innovative and creative and all the other things that we're expecting them to do, to be able to multitask and do a few jobs with one paycheck.
Yes.
So we have all these high expectations of the employee and the team member, but it seems that the leader is not living up to the expectations that they have of the people in their organizations.
One key thing, I'm a proponent for evidence. So much research has been conducted about what makes a leader great, how to get your people to work, and leaders just seem not to be able to take advantage of all the evidence, all the information that's out there that they can apply to their situations and turn their organizations around.
A lot of the people that I come across will say that they feel that their leaders are insecure because perhaps they're not as competent, or perhaps the opposite. They feel that they're so competent that they're not paying attention to what perhaps is not happening in their organization. Do you think that either of those may be the case as to why leaders aren't growing and changing the way they ought to?
I think so. Fear is a major cause of this disconnect. Fear that, again, the young bright spark coming into the organization is going to show us up, or fear that we might just actually lose control. We won't have the same control that we had before, and so they feel backed in a corner, and they refuse then to allow persons to come alongside of them, to even be mentored, to help them and bridge that gap, so to speak.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you're right. Either fear of not knowing enough, not being on the cutting edge, or fear of losing control, I think plays a very important part in this disconnect.
Yeah, a lot that I hear from young professionals, and even, seasoned professionals who want to be mentored, so sometimes they look up to these leaders who are holding certain positions, so they have positional power. And so people are looking to them for guidance and for support and to really invest in them as a mentor. And it seems as if some leaders do not want to invest in the people around them, that they're afraid to teach, to show them what they know. And so then the workplace becomes this battlefield of trying to get information, of, not communicating things that people need to know to
top
execute
secret.
their work. Yeah, this is top secret stuff.
You need to be top classified secrets, yes.
Yeah, so it's really a hindrance to progress. So what are some of the challenges then that could be viewed as the causes of a leadership crisis that some have viewed we are in today? What are some of those challenges?
A couple of challenges come to mind. One key, when leaders stop listening to their people. That can cause major leadership crisis. You're not listening to me, so you're on your own. If you think you can make this organization run by yourself, then fine, go ahead.
They're passive aggressive.
Yes. And then another thing is that the leaders become self-serving. They lose sight of the bigger picture, and they're just concerned about themselves. What do I get out of this? How can I promote myself, perhaps? And how do I come out smelling like, a rose? And so, again, they're not taking into consideration their external customers or their internal customers, for that matter. And so, again, you have a leadership crisis can be developed there. Another thing is that they don't feel as if they owe their constituents, accountability.
Yes.
They don't have to be accountable to their constituency.
What I say goes. Which is old school.
Exactly, and the buck stops here, and too bad if you don't like what I'm doing.
If you don't like it, leave.
And so one other thing, too, is when the leaders are no longer in sync with the times. You find, again, people coming out of school, younger persons, access to the internet, access to research and development and the evidence. And so the crisis occurs because the leaders who are in position do not embrace the up-and-coming persons and don't bring them alongside to say, well, look here, let's work together to fix this problem. Let's work together to make this better. Or let's work together to increase our bottom line, our productivity. Yeah. And so you have crisis occurring there. And then most importantly, the lack of leadership training and succession planning.
Oh, yes.
I'm a leader. I'm getting 60 down in my...
And I'm here to stay. They're going to cut me out of here.
I've grown roots, and they're going to have to carry me out. You know, that six-man business going to carry me out. And so I've not looked around within the organization to see who could possibly take over from me. And one of the things you find, the crisis occurs, and God forbid this happens, but somebody suddenly dies, and then you have to scramble around, well, who's going to take over, who's the best person to do this, when you should have done that a long time ago. And even once you found that person, done some training, prepare that person to take over. So you have these kinds of things causing leadership crisis.
Absolutely. And then when you start your search early enough, if, for instance, the person that you may have selected may not work out, or for whatever reason, maybe they're not even with the company anymore, you at least would have had a pool and you'd have time to work with people and really prepare the organization. I think that is a part of visionary leadership.
Yes.
When you're not just focusing on the day-to-day, but you're looking ahead and planning ahead. Even with not just succession planning, but even with trends and what's happening.
Trends, restructuring, downsizing.
Exactly. Changes in the business and how we ought to do business.
Yes.
You know, there's so many things that the leader is responsible for. So how then can we look at these challenges as an opportunity for change? Because again, we can get stuck in the rut and say, well, this is the way it is, and it's never going to change. That victim mentality that we feel everywhere powerless because this is the boss. I mean, we can't challenge the boss. So what do we do? How do we address these challenges and turn it around for the better?
First of all, there must be an awareness that something is not going right, that there is a need for change. And once you have that awareness, then you look at where does the problem lie. Perhaps you may need to have some realignment of the goals and your objectives in order to meet your vision, because sometimes visions can change, and you have to make sure that the goals fit the vision. And so another way to turn this into opportunity is the investment in leadership training. You see that there's a situation, so let's invest in some persons within the organization, whether through formal leadership training, by sending them back to school, or by mentoring, or by coaching. And so I see this as the means for turning that change into opportunities to promote the productivity within the organization.
Right.
As well as building up the human resources people.
Absolutely. What about the leader that does not believe in that? Because I have, in this business of personal development, professional development, can be challenging selling that whole concept to leaders. They feel that, the staff's already getting a paycheck. I don't want to invest more in them. Some leaders feel that I've invested and these people have left the company and moved on, and I've quote unquote lost that investment. I didn't get a return on it. How do you convince leaders that it is still profitable to invest in their teams?
As you were talking, something came to mind. Train your people or watch your organization die. Invest in your people or watch your bottom line just plummet into the abyss, so to speak.
Yeah.
These are risks that you take. You train people, they leave. But that's no reason to stop investing in people. Eventually you will find a team that sees the benefits of being attached to your organization, and the investment will pay off. Once people are happy and satisfied, and not everybody works for money,
That is very true.
The benefits that you may be providing, no shift, weekends off, some people prefer that rather than any amount of money, particularly people who are raising children, small children. So you just have to encourage that person to listen. Work with your people, and also a good way to get them into accepting change is to get them to accept some coaching or to hook up with a mentor.
Right.
And I find that here, that's not a common thing.
No, it's not.
People love this long distance mentoring.
Yes.
That doesn't seem to do so much for them. Oh, that's my mentor, but have you really sat down and have a discussion with that person as to what it is you need to do to become a better leader? Or how they did it, what are the insights that they can share with you? And so I think the person who is afraid of change is really afraid to grow and to be successful.
Yeah, and coaching and mentoring, as you said, is a good way for them. It protects their privacy and all of that, and whatever insecurities they may be feeling. But at the same time, it allows them to really work through those fears and what may be hindering them from moving forward and moving their organization forward. So you are listening to Ready for Change. I am your host, Simmone L. Bowe. We are going to take a short break and come right back to continue our conversation with Sandra. Just Sandra, she says.
Just Sandra.
We'll be right back.
This is Tanya Free. The year was 1968, and Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud by the Godfather of Soul, James Brown, was #1 on the charts for 6 weeks. In the song, James Brown addressed the prejudice towards blacks in America and the need for black empowerment, a strong, powerful, and emotional statement of the time. The song featuring lyrics, we demand a chance to do things for ourselves. We're tired of beating our heads against the wall and working for someone else, became the unofficial anthem for the Black Power movement. Let's not overlook the role of music in our rich history. What's your take? What present day and songs from yesteryear had a positive effect on our community and society as a whole?
The Tanya Free and Friends Talk Show, your destination for the best in social and political straight talk. Wednesdays at 2 p.m., streaming live on TanyaFree.com and BlackTalkRadioNetwork.com. Join the conversation Wednesdays at 2 p.m.
This is Caprice Smith, your uncuffed living expert. I want to take a moment and speak to my women entrepreneurs. If you have your own business card in the name of your business, but you struggle when someone asks what it is you do, that is a problem. If you are not making money that's going to build your legacy and sustain your family, that is a problem. I invite you to hop on over to capricesmith.com, join my free newsletter, and while you're there, schedule your strategy session. I want to help you uncover some things that you should already know. I spent 20 years perfecting my craft, and I'm willing to share all of what I know with you today. If you're not living uncuffed, you're just not living. And if you're cuffed in your business, your clients will know that and they won't invest in you. So let's connect. Until next time, have an awesome day.
If you're the parent of a child with behavioral challenges that has been suspended, expelled, or just not able to make it in a traditional school setting, there is an alternative. Call the Metropolitan Day School today. Licensed and accredited grades K through 12. Call 804-321-2595. Financial assistance and after-school programs are available. Let's turn this school year around right now at the Metropolitan Day School, where Eagles soar. Call Ms. Thomas today, 804-321-2595.
Welcome back. You are tuned in to Ready for Change. I am your host, Simmone L. Bowe, and I'm joined with our expert guest tonight, Dr. Sandra Smith, who says she's just Sandra. And we are talking about changing the leadership mindset and model. Are we in a crisis, or is this an opportunity for change? Just before the break, we were talking about challenges of that can be viewed as a leadership crisis, and how this can present an opportunity for change, and the type of leader that would be open to embracing change, first of all, for themselves, and then for the people around him or her. And there's a concept out there that's called servant leadership. Do you think that would be relevant in our context today in any of our organizations? First of all, what is servant leadership, and is it relevant?
Servant leadership is exactly what it says. Servant, serving. More so focusing not on the leader so much, but on the people that they're called to serve. And I like the word constituents. Everybody has a constituency. That's right. With constituents, and so they serve their constituents. And you find this type of leadership mainly with NGOs, human health, or human services. Some churches practice servant leadership where persons are served, where their needs are taken into consideration above those of the leader.
So the leader isn't focused on lording their power over people, but rather working alongside their team.
Working alongside their team, making sure that their goals and objectives are met as a team, at the same time empowering members of the team to reach their full potential.
What about those environments where I guess people aren't as responsive to leadership? And I'm wondering if it's really like a conditioning, where people are so used to that autocratic style of leadership where they're being dictated to and told what to do, that people are sort of conditioned now to not be creative, not use initiative. So it's again bringing this vicious cycle where the leader is expecting people to step out and to show initiative and to put themselves out there, and now people are afraid because if I put myself out there, I'm going to be beat down, I'm going to be embarrassed, I'm going to be shamed, I'm going to be put back in my corner. And so there's almost like this tug of war that's going on. What do you think we can do to address that?
You mentioned the word conditioning. Mm-hmm. I'm a proponent for lifelong learning. And any leader or any person who is in a leadership position or role who is not involved in lifelong learning will always be stuck in the dark ages. Times have changed. Cultures change. Organization cultures change. Persons are bringing new ideas. The diversity of people coming into the organizations with their ideas, their cultures, their way of doing things. The leader must keep up with them. And so through education, formal, informal education, reconditioning or resocialization, if you please, that person can become the leader that embraces the diverse nature of his organization. And so you want to say to that person, it is in your best interest to keep up with the times. Bureaucracy or autocratic style of management or leadership has gone out the window. And even the mindset of the younger generation has changed. The more you tell them not to do something, the more they decide that this is what I want to do.
Because they challenge the thought.
They challenge the status quo. They challenge what's going on. And so you as a leader now have to keep abreast with these changes. You have to embrace again their diverseness in order to get them to perform, in order to get them to be productive. Take, for instance, the autocratic leader who is not willing to allow flex time. Mm-hmm. And there's this young person who has a busy social life, who is into stuff and can't have the time off. 9 times out of 10, that person is going to be absent from work. Mm-hmm. Simply because all you had to do as a leader was negotiate the time off. Give him the opportunity or her the opportunity to say, well, look here, if I have today off, then perhaps I can work another day or work later to make the time up. But it doesn't happen a lot around here.
No. Unfortunately, I find many of the workplaces very formal in their approach and very rigid, and so again, and I find it's not just the young people, but there are other generations as well that we need to also leverage and embrace, because, for instance, I am in what is considered Generation X, so we are now those persons in the 30s and the 40s, and so we've come up. We're a little like the younger generation in that we challenge what we hear, but you may get a bit more stability and loyalty from our generation than you may get from a Generation Y or even a millennial.
A millennial, exactly.
So I think that leaders need to know their teams, and they need to be able to leverage all of those things. Because one of the things that concerns me is in recruitment today, it seems as if some companies only want to focus on young people. And I think that in some cases, it may be a case where they don't want to pay the older or the more seasoned worker. And so they figure they get someone that's fresh out of school, they're going to get the productivity, they're going to get the bright mind, they're going to get the creativity for less pay. And
when you get the loyalty.
Exactly.
You get the loyalty. And one of the things that I have,
and maturity.
The maturity. And in some cases, the institutional memory sometimes is very important. I came across a situation where a whole unit had all their people transferred out. And so there was nobody with the institutional memory to say, well, this is how it's done. And so you found that a lot of programs fell by the way.
And that's not productive, because now you're starting from scratch. So you've wasted years of what was already done, which makes no sense. It's not effective leadership. So when we talk about, again, the leader that I found as a consultant, the leader, even though they may initiate some change, it's the case of, I want everything and everybody around me to change, but I don't want to change. So what strategies could you use or to help leaders transition through change themselves? So they want you to help them lead their organizations through a change effort, or change in attitude or more productivity, whatever it is, downsizing, right-sizing, whatever the case may be. But they are not willing to move with the change that they're actually initiating. The change is for everybody else except me. How can leaders effectively transition through change?
Two strategies come to mind, and this is definitely where you need a mentor or a coach. Definitely. The mentor will provide that leader with the experience of someone who has gone before, and would be able to provide him or her with the insight as to what they can expect with such a change, or even provide them with some solutions to problems that they may encounter, and kind of takes the fear out of the whole process to say, look, I've done this and I've survived, so you can do this and you'll survive as well. A coach, on the other hand, is somebody who will be there as a sounding board for the leader, who will encourage them and support them, particularly if they were to make decisions that don't seem to go down well. Sometimes when you make decisions that don't go over well, you just need kind of like a little support to say, well, you did the right thing and it's okay. Expect opposition.
And doubt.
Yes. And so that's where that coach will come in. And then the coach will help them to identify specific goals that they may need to achieve. Personal goals and professional goals in this change, and help them to break it down into manageable goals that it won't be so daunting and again, such a fearful process. And the coach will provide the leader with tools to assist him in the transition and also hold him accountable.
Exactly.
Listen, you can't expect everybody to change and not you. One of the main things about a leader, particularly one who is considered a transformational leader, is to lead by example. Model the way. You know, and we have the saying, don't do as I say. Don't do as I do as I say. And that's not a good thing for leadership. So you have to set that example, follow through on that example, and then you would find persons following you as a leader.
Yeah, but I find including people, as you talked about earlier in the show, including people. So again, when we think about change, you will always have groups of people, like in the Who Moved My Cheese book and short film, you'll always have people who will embrace change very quickly.
Yes.
And they're going to run with the idea. They're ready to go, flexible. You're going to have some people who they will warm up to the change. And then you'll have some resistors who will just, no matter what you say or do, they are not prepared to move forward with the change. And so it's important, I think, for leaders to utilize those persons who are ready to run with the change, to kind of champion the change. And as you said, for them, for the mentor to say, well, we've done this and I can respect you, and say, okay, well, it's the same thing with the employee base.
Yeah.
If there's someone who can alleviate their fears and the opportunities to be resistant and fearful for their job and security and all the other things which that people fear.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the champion, because that is one of the main things when you talk about change. Find somebody who's well liked or the person's trust and put them in the forefront to spearhead this change, because they're like, you know, listen, this can happen, let's do this. They bring people alongside. So that champion is very important. I find that a lot of persons don't use a champion anymore. They just go ahead. But people want to know that somebody is there that I can trust. And so if they say it's okay to change, to go ahead with that, then I don't have a problem with it. And so you have people in the organization who people look up to, who they count on to be that way. If that person says it, well,
then it must be okay.
It must be okay.
Because you mentioned that, well, at least about formal and informal education, you have formal and informal leaders.
Yes.
So you have persons that have influence in the organization and may not necessarily have a title.
Have a title, yes.
But they're very influential.
Yeah.
So I think that is important to use them. What about using external consultants to help with change? I know that is really a role that I play. So I don't necessarily want to push that, because that's my view. I think that it really helps sometimes to have someone from the outside to help with advancing a change, because sometimes when you're really involved and steeped in a situation, that it sometimes can cloud how you see things, because you get so emotionally involved.
And if the change is a turbulent one, it's good to bring a person who's objective from the outside, especially a consultant who is going to be objective into the organization, who is least likely to take sides. You know, sometimes the change is necessary, restructuring, downsizing, and you've become attached to some of these people, and so your friend may not be performing. It's true. And so you're having a difficulty to let her go, but that consultant will come in, make an assessment, and say, well, listen, you know, this person isn't performing, and so I have to let her, you have to let her go. And then it takes a load off of your shoulder as a leader, because you can say, well, the consultant says
I'm not the bad guy.
It preserves your image. Yes, so consultants do have a role to play, you know. And I find that a good consultant would consult with the persons in the organization to find out their views. You have some consultants, they come in and they just chop, and people can't wait to see the back of them.
Exactly.
And then you have those who are considerate, who take into consideration the views of the employees, the internal and external customers, who play a very important role in the viability of any organization. And so they bring them alongside, hear what they have to say, and make their decisions, their assessment from a holistic point of view.
Exactly. So everyone really has a part to play. And as an effective leader, you will learn how to, a friend of mine likens it to playing chess. You know, being strategic and knowing the role of each of the men on the board and how to move them and when. You know, leadership and life actually is very much like that. So, given the dynamics then of the world today, and we talked a lot about leaders that are struggling with organizations and teams that may not, well, themselves do not want to change. What about people that refuse to change in their organization? Because it's easy to say, well, just fire them all and get rid of them and bring in these people who are all interested in change, but human beings on the whole tend to resist change. You can't really assess someone's readiness for change. You can do it as an organization, you know, are we ready for a particular type of change? But how do you deal with, for the leader now, how do you deal with those teams or those people that do not want to change? If you're willing to change, you're willing to drive whatever it is that's going on in the organization, but as you said before, you got to have people following. And you may not have people or enough people following this particular change.
You know, Simmone, I am happy you asked that, because guess what? You may have to have the balls to fire some of these people. But before you fire them, you give them the opportunity. Sometimes people want to know what's in it for them.
Yes.
And so this is where you bring them in, you sit them down, whether with the change agent, the person who's spearheading the change, with the champion, sometimes even with the leadership, to say, listen, this is what's in it for you. This is the opportunity. This is what I am prepared to do. And kind of get them to meet you halfway. And like you said, sometimes there's some who would readily embrace the change, some who may warm up, and even though these people may appear not to want to change, sometimes they need a little stroking.
Yes.
You know, that stroke their ego a little bit. They need to be cause them to feel special. And so eventually they'll begin to warm up to the changes that you want to implement. Now, if they're adamant, then perhaps these people just may have to look for employment elsewhere. Because if you're not going to work towards achieving the goals and the objectives to meet the vision of the organization, what point is having you
why
there?
Are you there fighting?
Yes.
You know, and I think a lot of times people forget why they are a part of an organization. They lose sight of the fact that we are all here to make sure that this vision comes to pass. And so if we're not playing that role, then I think it was the Collins man that wrote the book Good to Great. You know, he likened the organization to a bus. And, you know, you got to know who's driving the bus, and you got to have the right people on the bus. And so if you are on the wrong bus,
time to get off, buddy.
Time to get off.
Time to get off.
As we say in the Bahamas, bus stop.
Bus stop. And you know what? If you, for whatever reason, choose to have these persons stay on, they could become a pain in the butt.
I call him cancerous. Because it spreads, you know, their negativity.
Yes, and you always have to keep going back to them and coddling them.
Yeah.
And no.
And it's too much work, you know. I was actually, funnily enough, in a meeting today with a couple leaders, and they were frustrated for the same thing. I said that, you know, the lack of maturity and professionalism of people who hold senior roles, and this hand-holding and petting and of the attitudes and all of that, and not going along with, and because they're very good at what they do, they have went along with these personality issues and the maturity level and all that sort of thing. But there comes an end to people's ability to tolerate that sort of thing, especially when it's not productive.
I had an incident. I worked with government some time back, and we were implementing some changes in one of the organizations. I was the change expert at that time, leading the change, and I came across two persons, and they fought me tooth and nail. And one thing, when you're leading a change exercise, you must have the support of top management.
Absolutely.
And I had that support, and I said to them, look, you're really, really good workers. We would love to have you working with us. But if you don't want to play ball, you can just go back. Mm-hmm. And where you came from, they came from someplace else to work along with us. And I said, I would hate to see you go back. But if you don't want to work with us, then there will be no other alternative. And I said, go home and think about it. Mm-hmm. Bright and early the next morning, both of these young men called me. Sandy, we think we'll go along. And so I mentored them, and they're still my friends to this day. Good. But I had to listen. Either you play ball or get out of the game.
Exactly. Get on the bench.
Yes.
As you holding up the game, we are in it to win it, as they say.
Yes.
So what would you suggest then, as we wrap up our show tonight, as an effective leadership model that can cross all lines? We're talking about business, we're talking about civic society, government, church. What is an effective leadership model in your experience?
Having studied leadership and look at the evidence, done the research myself, I would like to say that the transformational leadership model is one that could cross all these boundaries. This is a model of inclusiveness and collaboration. Gone are the days when one person have all the ideas. There are people around you who are just as brilliant or even more so, and they bring a lot to the table, and the transformational leader use these people to their benefit. Also, the transformational leader or transformational leadership encourages change. So it's not just about the business. It's just not about what we're selling or our goods and services, but it's about all your external customers, but it's about building up your internal customers so that they can perform to their maximum. And also by reshaping the values and the perceptions of the employees. We talk about mindset, changing the mindset, and the transformational leader does that. How to get their colleagues, if you will, to perform better, to go to the next level, if you please. And so you can benefit from that in the church, the civic places, the business places. And then, of course, one thing that in a paternalistic society, don't talk back to me, the transformational leader encourages their employees or their colleagues to voice their opinions. And they don't catch feelings, so to speak.
Yes, and feel that everybody's insubordinate and
yes,
challenging their authority.
And so they encourage them to voice their opinions, but most of all, they reproduce leaders. They develop leaders. They encourage persons to become leaders themselves. And of course, they embrace diversity. They know that it's not just the flour to make the cake, but you need a little egg and a little water, and we get a nice pound cake out of out of all of this, So I would that is the model that I encourage persons to become familiar with and to obtain skills. Of course, being a transformational leader is more than just those things that I've talked about, but those are some of the basic tenets of transformational leadership.
Yeah, and I think that can be effective because in leadership there is such a strong tendency toward abuse. And, just before we close, I'd like to touch on that because I think this paternalistic, as you called it, autocratic type leadership can be actually abusive and dysfunctional, where there's a lot of control, there is manipulation, there is shaming, there is verbal abuse. I don't know if you've seen the movie Horrible Bosses.
No, I haven't.
It's a comedy, but it's about three guys that have horrible bosses. They're each on different jobs, but the bosses are really terrible in their own way. So one of them, he was a male, and he was actually being sexually harassed by his female boss.
Wow.
Every day. I mean, and blatant harassment where she would physically touch him inappropriately, make inappropriate comments. She would threaten him, and because he had a record, it wasn't as if he was free to just say, I can't put up with this anymore, I'm leaving, I'm going, because if he left that job, there's a possibility he may not get another job. The other one, the person was verbally abusive. He manipulated him to work all these long hours, so he didn't really have a life outside of the job. And he dangled the opportunity or the hope of getting a promotion to this guy. And so he was pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing for this promotion that he never got. And the other person, I'm trying to remember what his scenario was, but be that as it may, they were all horrible bosses, you know. And when we look at those scenarios, they are very abusive. And we see that at the workplace, we see it in government, we see it even in the church, where we are supposed to be exemplifying certain principles and values of Christ. We will see leaders that will do the same thing that people would experience at work, you know, shaming them publicly, controlling their movements, controlling their thought, restricting, you know, their lives, really. I mean, you have to answer to me or nothing else. And it's scary the way that people are being conditioned through their leaders, and there needs to be, I feel, some balance in leadership approaches, leadership models. Otherwise, we tip the scale into a place that's not a good place, because that leads then to either total passivity or revolution.
Yeah. When I was doing my thesis, which, by the way, is something called organizational citizenship behavior.
Ooh.
I came across the fact that America spends millions of dollars because of abusive supervisors.
Wow.
And I looked at it, you know, in preparation for this evening. I looked at it and I said, well, we're not going to talk about abusive supervisors. So I don't need the exact amount of money that is spent because of abusive supervisors. And the literature speaks about it as the dark side of leadership. And just like you said, manipulation and control and using their position to make persons do whatever it is they want to do or withhold opportunities. And sometimes it's as simple as attending a professional development workshop.
Yes.
Oh, you can't go to this. Why do you want to go to that? And not seeing the need that people need to be motivated.
But then they'd allow someone else to go who they're friendly with or something like that. And so you see those anomalies in the workplace.
Yes.
I'm reading a book now, actually in preparation for an article that I'm going to write on toxic workplaces.
Yes.
And some of the stories of people, I mean, and it actually affects people's health. It affects their health and their well-being, where people get physically sick. You either gaining weight, you end up with blood pressure issues, stress-related disorders,
depression.
Mental, I was going to say.
Yes. Some people, because of toxic workplaces, actually become suicidal and commit suicide. And these persons are unable to function. And, you know, the sad thing about it is the supervisor does not or fails to acknowledge what she's doing. And so when the time comes around for a performance appraisal, has the nerve to say that this person is not performing.
Right.
Not considering that I am causing this person not to perform.
Exactly.
So it's a catch-22 sometimes.
It is. And I think that we need greater accountability from leaders to make sure that, as you say, they are being reviewed. Somebody needs to be watching what they're doing. And how
I like the 360.
Hello.
The 360 performance appraisal. Your person's working under you. They appraise you. Somebody over you appraise.
And your peers.
Yes, your peers.
Exactly.
So you get the whole picture. And so, yes.
Exactly. So as we close, this has been a very rich discussion. on Ready for Change tonight, and tell us more about what you do, how we can find you. You know, if an organization wants to call you up and say, you know, Sandra, we need some leadership help. Tell us about what you do.
Well, I'm a John Maxwell certified coach, trainer, and speaker. And one of the things I do, I use the John Maxwell material to provide training for organizations. I also do coaching, individual as well as group coaching. I conduct mastermind groups. In fact, I'm getting ready to conduct a mastermind group in the next few weeks. I've just had a visioning workshop that was very successful. And also, I do something called intuitive counseling.
Ooh, tell us about that.
And so, that is where my spiritual side comes out. I walk in the office of a prophet, and so some people would call it psychic, having a psychic ability, but I prefer prophetic abilities. And so I use that gift of the word of wisdom to help persons define their purpose and to kind of lead them into a path that they should go.
Great.
And so I do that. And I'm on Facebook. I'm a Facebook junkie.
I was just going to say, tell us where we can find you.
My Facebook name is Sandra G. Smith. And then my cell number is 412-449-4169. My email is Sandy, SANDYG, SMTH @yahoo.com. Now, there's another Sandy Smith out there who gets all of my emails.
Yes, I think I had a student by that name.
Because people put the I. My email does not have an I in Smith. So it's Sandy, SANDYG, SMT as in Tom, H as in Helen, @yahoo.com.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being on Ready for Change tonight. And I know that this will not be the last time. We have to continue this conversation about leadership because I think it's very important and it's something that we need to see a shift. We need to see a change.
I agree.
And mind you, there are great models out there. I find that there are some new generation leaders that are coming up. If you notice, a lot of the newer companies, they're looking at different structures. They're more flexible. They have a totally different work
less
culture.
Hierarchical, flat, everybody
is a part of the team and contributing and so forth. And so we do have the models out there. Yes. They are working. They're actually very successful organizations. And so it's not impossible.
No.
Good leadership, as we started off at the beginning, is not a dream.
No, but it can become a dream come true.
Yes, exactly, a dream come true. Yes. So thank you again for being a part of Ready for Change. I am your host, Simmone L. Bowe. We'll take a short break and come right back.
Hi, I'm Rita Ricks, host of Spirit Journeys Radio, and I'm pleased to announce that discussions in February will focus on your purpose. Many of my clients often ask me questions like, what is my purpose? How do I find it? How will I recognize it? These are certainly appropriate questions to ask when you feel as though something is missing in your life. My role as life coach is to help you to begin to identify what your true purpose is and what gifts you already have to effectively live your purpose. I have some wonderful guests willing to share how they view their purpose and what purpose means to each of them. You will benefit greatly from hearing them. So join me every Tuesday night from 8 to 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You can dial 646-652-2512 to listen and chat. I look forward to spending February with you. And I'm Rita, listening to your spirit.
Incarceration doesn't just affect the one behind bars. It affects everyone. Here's your chance to let others know that being locked up leaves others locked down on the outside, hurting emotionally, economically, and spiritually. We want to know how you feel. Go to www.lovelockdownseries.com and make your creative voice heard. LoveLockdownSeries.com. We're listening.
Hi, my name is Letitia M., owner of May We Help You Network. I want to thank you for joining us and enjoying our host here on MWHY Radio Network. Please visit us online at mwhyradio.com and like us on facebook.com/MWHY Radio. Tune in to learn more about our host and upcoming contests and our TV programming that'll be coming to you soon. MWHY Radio, bringing together business, community, and you.
Thank you so much for tuning in tonight on Ready for Change with our expert guest, Dr. Sandra G. Smith, sharing on the topic, changing the leadership mindset and model, crisis or opportunity. And I believe that it's an opportunity. Every moment of crisis or chaos or frustration, indecision, stagnancy, to me is an opportunity for change. It's an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity for transformation. It's an opportunity for movement. And so it's all about our perspective and our willingness to acknowledge where we are and make the necessary decisions to move to where we want to be. Thanks so much for tuning in to us tonight, and I hope that you will join us again next Thursday at 8 p.m. on the May We Help You broadcast network for another exciting and provocative and thought-provoking and interesting and informative and transformational show. I am so excited. I have some great guests and great topics lined up for you. Give us some feedback as well. Give us an email, transformationmedia1@gmail.com. Transformationmedia1, the number 1, @gmail.com. Give us your feedback. Tell us what shows you may want us to talk about. You may have some burning issue that you'd like for us to address, and we'd be happy to do that. Be a part of the conversation. Be a part of the solution. Because at Ready for Change, we don't just talk change, we live change. Until the next time, I'm your host, Simmone L. Bowe.
Hard Lord, 'cause I'm really desperate for change. I don't wanna be the same. No, 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 no. I am crying out to you, 'cause only you are able to make me brand new. Lord, I'm ready for change. I can't keep living like this. I don't wanna be the same. Lord, I'm ready for change. From the inside out, I don't wanna be the same. Falling and tripping, making the same mistakes. I can't continue living my life this way. Constantly going astray.